coffee was still hot when my wife Erica announced she was leaving me for 2 weeks. Not in those exact words, of course. She dressed it up in corporate speak about strategic planning sessions and executive retreats. With her boss, David Sterling. "It's a huge opportunity, Jake," she said, not looking up from her phone as she scrolled through what I assumed were work emails. Her manicured fingers tapped the screen with practiced efficiency. "David specifically requested me for this project. We're flying out Monday morning." I watched her from across our kitchen island, noting how she'd already started distancing herself. The way she said David with that little smile playing at the corners of her mouth. The way she'd been working late every night for the past month, coming home smelling like expensive cologne that definitely wasn't mine. 2 weeks is a long time, I said, testing the waters. "It's business, Jake. You know how important my career is." She finally looked up, and I saw something in her eyes I'd been trying to ignore for months. Guilt, maybe. Or excitement about something that had nothing to do with me. Erica had always been ambitious. It's what attracted me to her 8 years ago when we met at a company barbecue. She was the sharp-dressed marketing manager who could hold her own in any boardroom, and I was the blue-collar mechanic who owned a small auto repair shop on the outskirts of town. Opposites attract, they say. Sometimes they also destroy each other. "Where are you going exactly?" I asked, refilling my coffee mug. "The Lakeside Resort up in Millbrook. It's about 4 hours north. Beautiful place, apparently. David's been there before for corporate events." Another mention of David, another little smile. David Sterling. 42 years old, divorced, drives a BMW that I'd worked on twice in the past year. Tall, silver-haired, the kind of guy who wore $1,000 suits and talked about synergy and paradigm shifts without irony. The kind of guy who made me feel like a grease monkey every time Erica brought him up in conversation, which had been happening a lot lately. "I'll call you every night," she said, already mentally packing, "and we can text throughout the day when I have breaks." "Sure," I said. "Every night." She kissed my cheek as she headed upstairs to pack, and I caught a whiff of that cologne again. Expensive. Not the kind of scent that lingers from a handshake or casual office interaction. I spent the rest of Sunday watching her prepare for her business trip. She packed clothes I'd never seen before. A black dress that still had tags on it, lingerie that definitely wasn't for my benefit, shoes that cost more than most people's car payments. When I asked about the new wardrobe, she brushed it off as professional attire for client dinners. Our daughter Tessa, 17 and perpetually attached to her phone, barely looked up when Erica explained she'd be gone for 2 weeks. "Whatever," Tessa mumbled, thumb-typing what looked like a novel to her boyfriend. "Dad can handle it." "Thanks for the vote of confidence," I said. "You're welcome," she replied, completely missing my sarcasm. Monday morning came too soon, and not soon enough. Erica was up at 5, showering and getting ready with the kind of meticulous care usually reserved for special occasions. She'd booked a car service to the airport, which struck me as odd since I'd offered to drive her. "It's easier this way," she said. "You don't have to take time off work." The car arrived at 7 sharp, a black sedan with tinted windows like something out of a movie. I watched from the front porch as the driver loaded her suitcases, plural because apparently a 2-week business trip required enough luggage for a month-long vacation. "I'll miss you," she said, hugging me goodbye. It felt rehearsed. "Miss you too," I replied, and meant it despite everything. She climbed into the back seat, and I noticed David Sterling was already there waiting for her. He gave me a little wave through the tinted glass, the kind of gesture that could be interpreted as friendly or mocking, depending on your perspective. I chose to interpret it as mocking. The sedan pulled away, and I stood on my porch watching until it disappeared around the corner. Mrs. Patterson from next door was watering her flowers, but I could tell she was really watching the drama unfold. Small towns love their gossip, and a wife leaving with her boss in a fancy car was prime material. "Business trip," I called over to her. "Of course," she replied with a knowing smile. I went back inside and poured another cup of coffee. The house felt different already. Bigger, emptier, like a stage set after the actors had gone home. Erica's presence had always filled our space in ways I hadn't fully appreciated until it was gone. My phone buzzed. A text from her. "Boarding now. Love you." "Love you too." I typed back, then deleted it and wrote "safe flight" instead. The first few days passed in a blur of routine, work at the shop, dinner with Tessa, evening phone calls from Erica that lasted exactly long enough to seem normal, but not long enough to feel genuine. She told me about meetings and presentations, client dinners and strategy sessions. Her voice sounded bright and energetic in a way it hadn't in months. "How's David handling the workload?" I asked during one call, fishing. "Oh, you know David. He's in his element. This is what he lives for." There was warmth in her voice when she talked about him, the kind of warmth that used to be reserved for me. And the other executives? Big group? A pause. Actually, it's just David and me on this particular project. More focused that way. Just the two of them, at a romantic lakeside resort. For 2 weeks. I'm not a stupid man, despite what my wife apparently thought. Thursday arrived like a slow-motion car crash. Day 5 of Erica's business trip, and I was going through the motions of normal life while my marriage quietly imploded 4 hours away. I'd been working on a transmission rebuild all morning, the kind of detailed, methodical work that usually helped clear my head. It wasn't working. I came home for lunch and found Erica's iPad on the kitchen counter, plugged into its charger where she always left it. She'd been in such a hurry Monday morning that she'd forgotten to pack it. Not a big deal. She had her phone and laptop for work. I wasn't planning to snoop. That's what I told myself as I picked up the device and saw the notification badges on her message apps, dozens of unread texts, emails, social media notifications. The iPad was synced to her phone, which meant every message she sent or received was duplicated here. I should have put it down, should have respected her privacy and trusted my wife of 8 years. Instead, I opened her messages. The first few threads were normal. Work colleagues, her sister, a group chat with her college friends. Nothing suspicious or interesting. I was about to close the app when I saw David's name at the top of the recent conversations. My finger hovered over his name for what felt like an eternity. Once I opened this thread, there would be no going back. Whatever I found would change everything between us. I tapped his name. The most recent messages were from this morning. David. Can't wait for tonight. Dinner at 8. Erica. Perfect. I'll wear the black dress. David. The one you bought for me? God, you're incredible. Erica. Only for you. Jake never appreciated how I looked in black. My hands started shaking. I scrolled up, reading more messages, each one a knife twist in my chest. David. 2 weeks together. Finally. Erica. I know. I can't believe we're actually doing this. David. No more sneaking around, no more pretending. Erica. Just you and me and that beautiful lake view. I kept scrolling, going back days, then weeks. The messages painted a picture I'd been too blind or too trusting to see. Plans for their business trip that had nothing to do with business, hotel reservations for the couple's suite, spa appointments for 2, romantic dinners at restaurants that definitely weren't hosting corporate events. Erica. I feel terrible about lying to Jake. David. It's not lying, sweetheart. It's protecting him until we figure out our next steps. Erica. Our next steps? David. You know what I mean? This can't go on forever. Erica. I know. After we get back, we need to have some difficult conversations. I screenshot everything. Every message, every photo they'd exchanged, every plan they'd made for their romantic getaway disguised as a business trip. My phone's camera roll filled with evidence of my wife's betrayal, each image a small act of revenge. The lunch I'd planned to eat sat forgotten on the counter as I read through months of deception. They'd been planning this trip since February, carefully coordinating their story, making sure their alibis matched. David had booked the resort using his corporate card, categorizing it as a strategic planning retreat to avoid suspicion. But it was the personal messages that cut the deepest. Erica. Jake's been so distant lately. I don't think he even notices when I'm gone. David. His loss is my gain. Erica. Sometimes I wonder what I ever saw in him. We're so different. David. You deserve someone who understands your ambitions, someone on your level. Erica. Someone like you? David. Exactly like me. I set the iPad down and walked to the bathroom, where I threw up everything I'd eaten that day. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I saw a stranger, a man whose wife was cheating on him with her boss while he played the role of the oblivious husband. But I wasn't oblivious anymore. I splashed cold water on my face and made a decision that would change everything. If Erica wanted to play games, I could play games too. If she thought I was the village idiot who would sit at home waiting for her to return from her romantic vacation, she was about to learn otherwise. I picked up my phone and called the shop. Tommy, it's Jake. I need you to cover for me this afternoon. Something important came up. Sure, boss. Everything okay? It will be, I said, and meant it. I spent the rest of Thursday afternoon doing something I never thought I'd do, investigating my own wife. It felt dirty and necessary at the same time, like cleaning an infected wound. It was going to hurt, but ignoring it would only make things worse. The Lakeside Resort's website painted a picture of romantic luxury. Couples packages, spa treatments, candlelit dinners overlooking the water. The kind of place you take someone you love, not someone you're conducting business with. Their photo gallery showed intimate dining rooms, private balconies, and king-sized beds with rose petals scattered across silk sheets. I called the resort pretending to be interested in booking a stay. "We're actually booked solid this week," the receptionist told me. "We have a corporate group that's reserved most of our premium suites." "Corporate group? How many people?" "Just 2 guests, but they've booked our executive package. Very exclusive." 2 guests, not a team of executives or a strategic planning committee. Just my wife and her boss, playing house with company money. I hung up and stared at the evidence I'd compiled. Screenshots of their messages, photos of Erica's new wardrobe, credit card statements showing purchases at Victoria's Secret and expensive boutiques. Everything pointed to the same conclusion. My wife was having an affair, and she thought I was too stupid to figure it out. The rational part of my brain told me to confront her directly. Call her right now, tell her I knew everything, demand she come home immediately. But the rational part of my brain wasn't in control anymore. The part that was in control wanted justice, wanted consequences, wanted her to feel the same humiliation and betrayal that was currently eating me alive. My phone rang. Erica's name appeared on the screen, along with a photo from our honeymoon 7 years ago. She looked so happy in that picture, so genuinely in love. I wondered when that had changed and why I hadn't noticed. "Hey," I answered, trying to sound normal. "Hi, honey. How was your day?" Her voice was bright and cheerful, probably because she'd just spent the afternoon in bed with David. "Same as always. Fixed some cars, made some money. You?" "Oh, you know how these corporate things are. Meeting after meeting, David and I barely had time for lunch." The lie rolled off her tongue so easily it made me wonder how many others I'd swallowed over the past few months. "Sounds exhausting." "It is, but it's important work. This project could really advance my career." "I'm sure it could." I walked to the kitchen window and looked out at Mrs. Patterson's house. She was still in her garden, probably hoping for more drama to report to her bridge club. "How's Tessa?" "Being 17. You know how it is." "I do." A pause. "Jake, is everything okay? You sound different." For a moment, I considered telling her everything, laying out what I'd discovered, giving her a chance to come clean, maybe even forgive her if she was genuinely sorry. But then I heard David's voice in the background, calling her name with casual intimacy. "Everything's fine," I said. "Just tired." "Okay. Well, I should go. David wants to review tomorrow's presentation over dinner." "Of course he does. Have fun with your presentation." "Love you," she said, and I could hear the guilt in those 2 words. "Love you too," I replied, and hung up before she could hear the lie in mine. That evening, I sat in my garage with a beer and my laptop, planning my next move. I could have called a divorce lawyer, started proceedings immediately, but that felt too clean, too easy. Erica and David had been playing a game with my life for months, making me the unwitting fool in their romantic comedy. It was time to change the script. I started with David's corporate credit card statements. As the owner of a business myself, I knew how expense reports worked. Every charge had to be justified, categorized, and approved. David had been billing their affair to the company for months. Romantic dinners listed as client entertainment, hotel rooms categorized as business travel, even couples' spa treatments marked as team-building exercises. It was fraud, plain and simple. I compiled everything into a detailed report. Dates, amounts, locations, purposes, cross-referenced with Erica's calendar and her messages to David. The pattern was clear to anyone who bothered to look. These weren't business expenses. They were the receipts for an extramarital affair funded by corporate money. Friday passed in a haze of normal activities that felt anything but normal. Work, dinner with Tessa, another phone call from Erica full of lies and fake affection. I played my part perfectly, the devoted husband counting down the days until his wife's return. Saturday, I made my decision. I created an anonymous email account and composed a message to the company's human resources department. Professional, factual, devastating. "Dear HR team, I am writing to report suspected misuse of corporate funds by David Sterling, VP of Marketing. Attached you will find expense reports, receipts, and photographic evidence showing that Mr. Sterling has been using his company credit card to fund personal activities with employee Erica Matthews. These expenses, totaling over $15,000 in the past 3 months, have been incorrectly categorized as business expenses when they are clearly personal in nature. The attached evidence includes hotel charges for couples suites at romantic resorts, spa treatments for 2 people, expensive dinners at restaurants with no business purpose, travel expenses for personal vacations. I believe this constitutes fraud and misuse of company resources. I trust you will investigate this matter thoroughly. A concerned party." I attached everything: screenshots, photos, expense reports, even pictures from the resort's website showing the romantic packages they'd booked. It was a comprehensive case that would be impossible to dismiss or explain away. I scheduled the email to send Monday morning at 8 a.m., right about the time corporate headquarters would be starting their day. By the time Erica and David were having their breakfast in bed, their careers would be imploding back home. Sunday crawled by like a wounded animal. I went through the motions of a normal day: coffee, newspaper, working in the garage, while internally counting down the hours until their world collapsed. Erica called twice, both times sounding relaxed and happy. She told me about the productive meetings they'd been having, the breakthrough strategies they'd developed. "We might actually finish early," she said during the second call. "Maybe come home Wednesday instead of Friday." "That would be nice," I said, knowing there was no chance in hell they'd be finishing anything except their careers. David's been incredible to work with, so focused, so dedicated. I'm learning so much from him. "I bet you are." "Jake, you sound strange again. Are you sure everything's okay?" "Everything's perfect," I said. "Couldn't be better." Monday morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. and made coffee with hands that shook slightly from anticipation. Somewhere 4 hours away, my wife was probably waking up next to her boss, planning another day of business meetings that would actually be spent in bed or walking hand in hand around the lake. At exactly 8 a.m., my scheduled email sent itself into the digital void, carrying with it enough evidence to destroy 2 careers and end my marriage. I imagined it landing in some HR manager's inbox, imagined their reaction as they opened the attachments and realized what they were looking at. I didn't have to wait long. At 6:23 a.m. on day 9, my phone rang. I was in the kitchen making coffee, moving through my morning routine like a man preparing for war, which in a way I was. The caller ID showed David Sterling's number, and I let it ring 3 times before answering, let him sweat a little. "Jake Matthews," I said, as if I didn't know who was calling. "Jake, it's David." His voice was cracking, high-pitched with panic. Nothing like the smooth, confident tone he used when talking about synergy and paradigm shifts. "Is this Jake Matthews, Erica's husband?" "That's me." "What can I do for you, David?" I kept my voice calm, professional, the eye of the hurricane. "You need to tell your wife to get to the lobby now. Right now. Corporate security is here. They're asking about her. About you." I set down my coffee mug and smiled. "Corporate security. That sounds serious." "They're saying you reported us. Our fraud charges, misuse of company funds. They have photos, Jake. Photos of us at dinner, at the spa. How did you—" His voice broke completely. "I didn't do anything wrong, David. You did. You both did. Should have thought about that before you decided to steal from the company. Please, you don't understand. This will ruin both our careers. Erica's career. She doesn't deserve this. Erica made her choices. So did you. Actions have consequences. Jake, please, I'm begging you. Call them off. Tell them it was a mistake, a misunderstanding." I laughed, and it came out darker than I intended. "I can't untell the truth, David. You wanted to play games with my marriage? Well, game over. You lost." I hung up. The phone immediately started ringing again. David's number. I declined the call and blocked his number. Let him panic. Let him scramble. Let him feel what it was like to watch his life fall apart in real time. At 6:45 a.m., my phone rang again. This time it was Erica. "Jake." Her voice was small, terrified. I could hear crying in the background. Probably her, probably David, maybe both. "Morning, sweetheart. How's the business trip going?" "What did you do?" The words came out as a sob. "I exposed your business trip for what it really is. A romantic vacation funded by company money. How's that working out for you?" "You're destroying my life." She was crying openly now, the composed corporate executive completely gone. "I'm not destroying anything. You destroyed our marriage. I just made sure there were consequences. Please, Jake, please tell them it was a mistake, that you were wrong. I'll come home right now. We can work this out." "Sorry doesn't fix this, Erica, and there's nothing to work out. You made your choice when you decided to screw your boss on the company's dime." "What about us? What about our marriage?" I was quiet for a long moment, letting her hope build before I crushed it completely. "There is no us. Divorce papers are being filed today." I laughed, and it was bitter as burnt coffee. "Have a great rest of your trip." I hung up and immediately called my lawyer, Marcus Webb. No relation to any of this mess, just an unfortunate coincidence of names. I'd retained him over the weekend, anticipating this moment. "Marcus, it's Jake Matthews. It's time to file those papers we discussed. You sure about this, Jake? Once we file, there's no going back. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. An hour later, David called again from a different number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Corporate is pressing charges, he said without preamble. His voice was broken, defeated. We're both fired. Why did you do this to us? I told you already. I saw you at the restaurant on day 8. You were feeding each other dessert like teenagers. My wife was wearing a dress I'd never seen, looking happier than she'd looked with me in years. I decided consequences were overdue. Day 8? You were there? 4-hour drive. Checked into the hotel across the street, watched you two play house with company money, took some lovely photos for the HR department. Silence. You planned this, he said finally. You planned to destroy my marriage. I planned to make sure it cost you something. The company is suing us both. Do you understand that? Erica could go to jail. That's between her and the law. Not my problem anymore. Another hour passed. Then Erica called from what sounded like a police station. I could hear official voices in the background, the echo of institutional hallways. They're charging me with embezzlement, she said, her voice small and lost. Jake, I'm scared. For a moment, just a moment, I felt sorry for her. This was the woman I'd married, the woman I'd loved for 8 years, but then I remembered the messages on her iPad, the lies she'd told me, the way she'd laughed about me with her lover. That's between you and the law, I repeated. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please help me. Sorry doesn't fix this. What about Tessa? What about our daughter? Tessa will be fine. She's got one parent who didn't commit fraud and adultery. Jake, please. I have to go. I'm changing the locks today. I hung up and called a locksmith. By noon, the house was secure, and Erica's belongings were packed in suitcases on the front porch. I'd been methodical about it. Clothes, personal items, anything that was clearly hers. I left the expensive jewelry I'd bought her over the years, the anniversary gifts, the romantic mementos. She could come back for those when she had her life sorted out, if she ever did. At 2 p.m., a police cruiser pulled up in front of the house. Erica got out of the passenger seat, looking like she'd aged 10 years in the past week. Her hair was disheveled, her expensive clothes wrinkled, her face puffy from crying. She looked nothing like the confident executive who'd left for her business trip 8 days ago. Officer Martinez walked her to the front porch, professional but sympathetic. Mr. Matthews, I'm here to escort your wife while she collects her belongings. This is just to keep things peaceful. No problem, officer. Her things are right there. I gestured to the suitcases. Erica stared at the bags, then at me. Jake, please, can we just talk? We can talk through lawyers. This is our home, our life. This is my home now. Your life is whatever you make it from here. She started crying again, and I felt that familiar tug of sympathy. But sympathy was what had kept me blind for months while she planned her exit strategy with another man. I was done being sympathetic. Take your things and go. Erica? Officer Martinez helped her load the suitcases into the police car. As they drove away, I noticed Mrs. Patterson filming the whole scene with her phone from her front yard. By evening, half the neighborhood would know that Jake Matthews had kicked his cheating wife out of the house. Good, let them know. Tessa came home from school to find me sitting on the front porch with a beer, watching the sunset over our quiet suburban street. Where's Mom's car? She asked. Your mother won't be living here anymore. What? Why? I looked at my 17-year-old daughter, trying to figure out how much truth she could handle. She made some bad choices. We're getting divorced. Tessa stared at me for a long moment, then pulled out her phone and started typing furiously, probably texting her friends, maybe her mother. The news would spread through her social circles like wildfire. Another consequence Erica would have to live with. Is this permanent? Tessa asked. Yes. Good, she said, surprising me. I was getting tired of pretending everything was normal. Smart kid. Smarter than her old man, apparently. That evening, my phone rang constantly. Erica's sister, her mother, mutual friends who'd heard various versions of the story. I let them all go to voicemail. I wasn't interested in explaining myself or defending my actions. The truth would come out eventually, and when it did, they'd understand why I'd done what I'd done, or they wouldn't. Either way, it wasn't my problem. The next morning brought news that the corporate investigation had expanded beyond simple expense fraud. Erica and David's company, Sterling Marketing Solutions, had discovered that their business relationship had been going on for 6 months, during which time David had approved Erica's promotion, her salary increase, and her assignment to high-profile projects. Harassment, abuse of power, conflict of interest. The legal ramifications were multiplying like cancer cells. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is David's wife, Carol. We need to talk." I called her back immediately. "Mrs. Sterling, this is Jake Matthews. I know who you are." Her voice was controlled, but I could hear the anger underneath. "I wanted to thank you." "Thank me?" "For exposing what my husband was doing. I've been suspicious for months, but I could never prove anything. Your evidence gave me everything I needed for my divorce attorney. I'm sorry you had to find out this way." "Are you? Because I'm not sorry at all. I'm filing for divorce this afternoon, and I'm taking him for everything he's worth. The house, the cars, his retirement accounts, even his precious BMW." I found myself smiling. "Good for you." "There's something else. David's been doing this before. Other employees, other business trips. My lawyer thinks we can prove a pattern of behavior. Your wife might not have been his first victim." Erica wasn't a victim. She was a willing participant. Maybe, but she wasn't the only one. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen thinking about patterns and victims and willing participants. How many other marriages had David Sterling destroyed? How many other husbands had sat at home trusting their wives while their lives were being dismantled 4 hours away? The thought made me angry all over again. Wednesday afternoon, Erica called from her sister's house. "The company is suing us for $50,000, she said without preamble. "Restitution for the fraudulent expenses." "That's unfortunate." "I can't afford a lawyer, Jake. The good ones want $10,000 just to get started." "Sounds like you should have thought about that before you decided to commit fraud." "It wasn't fraud. It was just... You were just stealing money to fund your affair. That's the definition of fraud." Silence. "I need help," she said finally. "You need a lawyer, and a job, and probably a therapist." "Jake, please. I know I hurt you, but we were married for 8 years. That has to count for something." "It counted for something, right up until you decided to throw it away for your boss." "I made a mistake." "You made dozens of mistakes over 6 months. This wasn't a moment of weakness, Erica. This was a deliberate campaign of deception and betrayal." "What am I supposed to do?" "Figure it out, like a grown-up." I hung up and blocked her number. Thursday brought more fallout. The local newspaper ran a story about the Sterling Marketing Solutions scandal, complete with details about the expense fraud and the executive affair. They didn't name Erica specifically, but in a town this size, everyone would know who the female employee was within hours. Tessa came home from school looking embarrassed and angry. "Everyone's talking about Mom," she said. "What are they saying?" "That she's a gold digger, that she seduced her boss for money and promotions, that you kicked her out and changed the locks. All of that is true. I know, but it's still embarrassing. I'm sorry you have to deal with this. But your mother made her choices. I'm not mad at you, Dad. I'm mad at her. She ruined everything." That evening, I got a call from my lawyer with an update on the divorce proceedings. "Erica's representing herself," Marcus told me. "She can't afford an attorney." "How's that working out for her?" "Not well. She's trying to claim temporary insanity, emotional distress, manipulation by her boss. The judge isn't buying it." "Good. There's something else. She's asking for spousal support." I laughed out loud. "Spousal support? She committed adultery and fraud." "I know. I told her attorney, I told her, since she's representing herself, that we'd be filing a counterclaim for emotional distress and reputational damage. She dropped the spousal support request pretty quickly after that." "What about the house?" "It's yours. Bought before the marriage, never added her name to the deed. She has no claim to it." "And my business?" "Also yours. Again, established before the marriage, never made her a partner or co-owner. She can't touch it." For the first time in days, I felt genuinely good. Erica had gambled everything on her affair with David, and she'd lost. Spectacularly. Friday morning, exactly 1 week after her world had collapsed, Erica showed up at my shop. I was under the hood of a Chevy Silverado when I heard heels clicking on the concrete floor. I knew those footsteps, had heard them across our kitchen floor thousands of times over the years. "We're closed," I called out without looking up. "Jake, it's me." I straightened up and turned around. Erica stood in the doorway of my garage, backlit by morning sunlight. She looked terrible, thin, pale, wearing clothes I recognized from years ago. The expensive wardrobe she'd bought for her affair was probably being sold to pay for necessities. "What do you want?" "To apologize. To explain." "There's nothing to explain. You had an affair, committed fraud, and got caught. Pretty straightforward." She walked closer, and I could see the dark circles under her eyes, the way her hands shook slightly. I never meant for it to go this far." "How far did you mean for it to go?" "I don't know. I was confused, unhappy. David made me feel important, valued, like I mattered." "You mattered to me?" "Did I?" "When was the last time you really looked at me, Jake? When was the last time we had a real conversation about anything other than bills and schedules and Tessa's grades?" Oh, I wiped my hands on a shop rag, thinking. She wasn't wrong. We had grown apart over the years. But that didn't justify what she'd done. "So, you decided to have an affair instead of talking to me about it." "I didn't decide anything. It just happened." "Bullshit. Affairs don't just happen. You made a series of deliberate choices over 6 months. You chose to flirt with him, to go out with him, to sleep with him, to lie to me, to steal company money, to plan a romantic vacation. Every single step was a choice." She started crying, and for a moment I felt that old instinct to comfort her. But I stayed where I was. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry. I ruined everything." "Yes, you did. Can we try again? Can we go to counseling, work through this?" "No. Please, Jake. I love you. You love the security I represent. You love having someone to fall back on when your other plans don't work out. You don't love me." "That's not true." "If it's not true, then explain the messages I saw on your iPad. Explain how you told David that you wondered what you ever saw in me. Explain how you laughed about me being distant and oblivious." Her face went white. "You read our messages?" "Every single one. Screenshots are already with my lawyer." She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the exact moment she realized there was no coming back from this. No amount of tears or apologies would fix what she'd broken. "What am I supposed to do now?" she asked quietly. "Build a new life. Get a job. Learn from your mistakes. Move on." "I can't afford to move on. I'm staying with my sister, sleeping on her couch. I have no money, no job, no references. The fraud charges are still pending." "That's what consequences look like." "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" I thought about it honestly. "Yeah, I am. For 8 years, I trusted you completely. I never questioned where you were going or who you were with. I supported your career, celebrated your successes, believed every lie you told me, and you repaid that trust by screwing your boss and stealing money to pay for it. So yes, I'm enjoying watching you face the consequences of your actions." She nodded slowly, as if she'd expected that answer. "I'll sign the divorce papers," she said. "I know you will. You don't have a choice." She turned to leave, then stopped. "For what it's worth, I really am sorry." "So am I. I'm sorry I wasted 8 years on someone who thought so little of me." She walked away, heels clicking on concrete, and I went back to work on the Silverado. It felt good to fix something that was actually fixable. 3 weeks later, I was having a beer at Murphy's Tavern when my old friend Rick walked in. We'd known each other since high school, had been best man at each other's weddings, spent countless evenings shooting pool and solving the world's problems over cheap beer and peanuts. But Rick looked uncomfortable as he approached my table, and I had a feeling I knew why. "Jake?" he said, sliding into the booth across from me. "Rick, how's things?" "That's what I wanted to talk to you about." He signaled the bartender for a beer, then leaned forward. "Look, man, I've been hearing things around town. About Erica, about what happened. I bet you have. Some people are saying you went too far, that you could have handled it differently." I set down my beer and looked at him carefully. "Some people, or you?" "Both, I guess." His beer arrived, and he took a long sip before continuing. "Don't get me wrong, what she did was shitty, really shitty, but destroying her career, getting her arrested, taking everything in the divorce, it seems like overkill." "Overkill?" "Yeah, like you made your point. She knows she screwed up, but now she's basically homeless, unemployed, facing criminal charges. Her life is ruined." "Her life is ruined because she ruined it. I just made sure there were consequences." "But did the consequences have to be so severe?" I studied my oldest friend's face and realized something that hurt worse than Erica's betrayal. He was taking her side. "Let me ask you something, Rick. If Sarah cheated on you for 6 months, stole money to pay for romantic vacations with her lover, lied to your face every single day, and planned to leave you once she figured out her exit strategy, what would you do?" "I'd be pissed, sure, but I'd try to work it out. Marriage is about forgiveness. Marriage is about trust and respect and honesty. Erica destroyed all 3. So you destroyed her." "I exposed her. There's a difference." Rick shook his head. "I don't know, man. It just seems vindictive. It was vindictive, and it was justified." "Was it? Really?" I finished my beer and stood up. You know what, Rick? If you think what I did was wrong, then you don't know me as well as I thought you did. And you sure as hell don't understand what marriage means. Jake, come on. Don't be like this. Be like what? Like a man who expects his wife to be faithful? Like a husband who thinks stealing is wrong? Like someone who believes actions should have consequences? You're being dramatic. I'm being honest, something you apparently have a problem with. I threw a 20 on the table and walked out. Rick didn't follow me. The next day, I got similar conversations from 2 other friends, guys I'd known for years, who'd been to my wedding, who'd watched football at my house and borrowed tools from my garage. All of them thought I'd gone too far. All of them believed Erica deserved a second chance. None of them seemed to care that she'd never given me a first chance to save our marriage. By the end of the week, I'd lost 3 friendships and gained a reputation around town as the vindictive husband who'd overreacted to his wife's affair. The narrative was shifting, and I was becoming the villain in my own story. It pissed me off. Saturday morning, I was working in my garage when David Sterling pulled into my driveway. He looked like hell, unshaven, wearing wrinkled clothes, driving a beat-up Honda instead of his usual BMW. Apparently, his wife's divorce attorney was as good as she'd claimed. "We need to talk," he said, getting out of the car. "No, we don't." I didn't stop working on the engine I was rebuilding. "This has gone far enough, Jake. You've made your point." "Have I?" "Erica's destroyed. Her career is over, she's facing criminal charges, she's living on her sister's couch. You won. Isn't that enough?" I straightened up and looked at him. "You know what's funny, David? Everyone keeps telling me I've gone too far, that I should have handled this differently. But nobody seems to think you and Erica went too far when you were stealing money and lying to everyone for 6 months. We made mistakes. You committed crimes. Fraud, embezzlement, intimate harassment, abuse of power. Those aren't mistakes, they're felonies. The charges will probably be dropped. First offense, restitution paid, no jail time. Probably. But your reputation is shot, your marriage is over, and your career is finished, just like Erica's." He stepped closer, and I saw desperation in his eyes. "Look, I'll take full responsibility. I'll tell everyone it was all my idea, that I manipulated Erica into going along with it. I'll say she was the victim." "Why would you do that?" "Because I love her." I laughed, and it came out harsh and bitter. "You love her? You threw her under the bus the minute corporate security showed up. You tried to pin everything on her to save your own ass." "I was scared. I panicked. But I love her, and I want to protect her now." "Too little, too late. Please, Jake. She doesn't deserve what's happening to her." "She deserves exactly what's happening to her, and so do you." He stood there for a moment, probably trying to think of another angle, another way to manipulate the situation, but there wasn't one. The truth was out, the consequences were real, and no amount of begging would change that. "You're a cold bastard," he said finally. "No, I'm a man who got tired of being played for a fool." He drove away in his Honda, and I went back to work. That afternoon, Tessa came home with news that made everything worth it. "Mom called," she said, dropping her backpack by the door. "What did she want?" "To tell me she's moving to Phoenix. Aunt Linda got her a job at her company. Receptionist position, but it's something." "How do you feel about that?" Tessa shrugged. "Relieved, I guess. All the drama will die down once she's gone. People will find something else to talk about. You can visit her if you want, during school breaks or summer vacation." "Maybe. We'll see." That evening, Erica called me one last time. "I'm leaving town," she said without preamble. "I heard. Phoenix sounds nice." "The criminal charges are being dropped. David's paying full restitution and taking complete responsibility. Good for you. I wanted to say goodbye, and to tell you that you were right." "About what?" "About everything. I made terrible choices, hurt people I loved, destroyed everything good in my life. You didn't ruin me, Jake. I ruined myself." "Yes, you did." Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive me?" I thought about it honestly. "Maybe someday, but not today." "I understand." "Erica?" "Yeah?" "Don't do this to someone else. Learn from it. Be better." "I will, I promise." She hung up, and I deleted her number from my phone. 6 months later, I was a different man, living a different life. The divorce was final, the house was quiet, and Tessa had adjusted to our new normal with the resilience that only teenagers possess. She'd decided not to visit Erica in Phoenix over spring break, choosing instead to spend the week with her boyfriend's family at their lake house. I didn't blame her. The town had moved on to newer scandals, and I'd rebuilt my social circle with people who understood that loyalty and honesty weren't negotiable values. Rick and the others who'd sided with Erica were no longer part of my life, and I didn't miss them. I was closing up the shop on a Friday evening when Carol Sterling walked in. David's ex-wife looked good, confident, well-dressed, like a woman who'd taken control of her life and liked what she'd built. "Jake, I hope you don't mind me stopping by." "Not at all. What can I do for you?" "I wanted to give you an update, and to thank you again." She sat down on the folding chair I kept by my desk, and I could see she had news to share. "David's bankruptcy was finalized last week," she said. "Turns out he'd been embezzling from the company for years, not just the expense account fraud with your wife. The FBI investigation found over $200,000 in missing funds." "Jesus." "He's looking at federal charges now, real prison time, not just probation." "And Erica?" "Clean. The Phoenix DA reviewed her case and determined she was a victim of David's manipulation. Her charges were dropped completely." I felt a complicated mix of emotions. Relief that Erica wouldn't go to prison, vindication that David was finally facing serious consequences, and satisfaction that the truth had finally come out completely. "There's something else," Carol continued. "The FBI found evidence of at least 4 other affairs David had with employees over the past 5 years. Always the same pattern: expensive trips, company credit card, promises of promotions, and career advancement. 4 others? 4 that they can prove? Probably more. I'm filing a civil suit against the company for enabling his behavior. My lawyer thinks we can win big. Good for you. I wanted you to know because one of those women reached out to me. She said she'd heard about what happened with your wife and wanted to thank you for exposing David. Apparently, he'd been pressuring her for months, and she was afraid to report it because of his position in the company. I thought about that, about how my revenge had accidentally protected other women from David's predatory behavior. It didn't change what I'd done or why I'd done it, but it added a layer of meaning I hadn't expected. I'm glad something good came out of it, I said. Carol stood up and extended her hand. You did the right thing, Jake. Don't let anyone tell you different. After she left, I sat in my shop thinking about justice and consequences and the unexpected ways that truth finds its way into the light. I'd set out to destroy my wife's life because she'd destroyed mine. Instead, I'd accidentally exposed a serial predator and protected other women from becoming his victims. Sometimes revenge and justice look exactly the same. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. This is Erica. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know that the FBI cleared me of all charges. David was arrested this morning for federal embezzlement. I thought you should know. I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, I'm glad you're clear. Be well. She responded immediately. Thank you for everything. I know that sounds crazy, but you saved me from making even worse mistakes. I'm getting therapy, working on myself, trying to be better. I hope you can find happiness. I already have, I typed back, and realized it was true. I deleted the conversation and went inside to make dinner for Tessa and me. She was in the living room doing homework, humming along to music playing through her earbuds. The house felt peaceful, settled, like a place where honest people lived honest lives. 6 months ago, I'd been a betrayed husband planning revenge against an unfaithful wife. Tonight, I was a single father who'd learned that sometimes the best way to heal from betrayal is to make sure it never happens again, to anyone. I'd gotten my revenge, but more importantly, I'd gotten my life back, and that was worth everything. Epilogue. Day 9. Forever. 1 year later, I was invited to speak at a conference for small business owners about crisis management and reputation recovery. The irony wasn't lost on me. The man who'd destroyed his wife's reputation was now giving advice about protecting your own. But the invitation came because of how I'd handled the aftermath of the scandal. Instead of hiding or making excuses, I'd been completely transparent about what had happened and why. I'd owned my actions, explained my motivations, and refused to apologize for expecting honesty from the people in my life. It had worked. My business was thriving, my relationship with Tessa was stronger than ever, and I'd even started dating again. A teacher named Sarah who valued directness and had no patience for games or drama. During my presentation, I talked about the importance of having clear boundaries, of responding decisively to betrayal, and of accepting that some relationships can't be saved, they can only be ended with dignity. Afterward, a woman approached me with tears in her eyes. My husband has been having an affair with his secretary for 6 months, she said. I found out last week. Everyone keeps telling me I should try to work it out, go to counseling, forgive him. But after hearing your story, what do you want to do? I asked. I want him to face consequences. Real consequences. I want him to understand that actions matter. Then make sure he does. Won't people think I'm being vindictive? Some will. Others will think you're being strong. The only opinion that matters is yours. She nodded and walked away, and I hoped she'd find the courage to demand better for herself. That evening, I was having dinner with Sarah when my phone buzzed with a news alert. David Sterling had been sentenced to 4 years in federal prison for embezzlement and fraud. The article mentioned that his crimes had affected multiple victims and that his arrest had led to policy changes at companies across the industry. Good, Sarah said when I showed her the article. Some people need to learn the hard way that actions have consequences. Some people never learn at all. True, but that's not your problem anymore. She was right. David Sterling's fate wasn't my concern, and neither was Erica's new life in Phoenix. I'd done what I needed to do, achieved what I'd set out to achieve, and moved on to build something better. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, I thought about day 9, the morning when David's panicked phone call had confirmed that my anonymous report had reached the right people. The morning when consequences had finally caught up with actions, when lies had been exposed to light, when justice had begun its work. Day 9 had been my wife's reckoning, but it had also been my liberation. I'd spent 8 years being the trusting husband, the understanding partner, the man who believed the best about people even when evidence suggested otherwise. That man had been betrayed, humiliated, and discarded. The man I'd become was harder, more careful, less trusting, but also more honest, more decisive, and more willing to demand that others meet the same standards he held for himself. Some people might call that cold. I called it wisdom. I turned off the lights and went to sleep, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new chances to build a life based on truth instead of comfortable lies. Day 9 had taught me that revenge and justice aren't always different things. Sometimes they're exactly the same thing, wearing different names, and sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be anyone's fool ever again. In the end, that's exactly what I'd achieved. I'd stopped being the man who could be lied to, cheated on, and taken for granted. I'd become the man who demanded honesty, expected loyalty, and made sure that betrayal came with a price. My wife had left for a 2-week business trip with her boss, planning to destroy our marriage while I sat at home playing the role of the oblivious husband. Instead, day 9 became the day she learned that some husbands fight back, and some consequences last forever.